I want to. I was gonna change my status. I wasn't sure of the actual terminology besides white to actually put. I understand the meaning of white and black as far as the standing in law and its status. So I was wanting to know if that was the only thing that I put, or do I is there anything additional that I add?
Well, that's a great question. There is something else that you add. However, what we're doing before we even get to that point is we do screening to make sure people haven't taken the jab, or if they've taken the PCR test, they can
Oh,
contest that. It's
mm-mm.
hearsay to me. This is our protocol.
I understand.
And the reason for that, 23andMe is going to sell all the DNA samples that they just took about 3, 4 weeks ago. The companies, they're going to sell all that. Who
Yep.
knows what technology that they're developing, what they're working on. So of course they're going to need human DNA for some reason to power that or serve some purpose. Now, the reason for that is I have a remedy for the computer code because the computer has been coded in error. What I mean by in error is because the word black means pale in Old English,
Yes, it does.
the associated code that comes with black and with what they call white is incorrect. Currently, black is codified as hashtag 6 zeros. White, as they call it, is codified rather, as hashtag 6Fs. Now, the problem is because they're using facial recognition technology, they're using voice recognition technology already. So you're doing what's called hand shaking in tech terms. So anytime you call a company and they say, okay, well, if you want management, say one or say management, and you say that, your voice is now interfaced. Your sine wave is already interfaced with the computer.
Wow.
So the problem is, it's easy for the computer after all these years of voice recognition technology to easily identify someone who is black, African American, person of color, visible minority just off of their voice. Then the face, they can match the face because everyone's doing selfies and putting it up on social networking. So the computer can see, okay, here's this person's face. Do they have an audio file on the internet? Yes, okay, it looks like it is okay. We'll see, okay, there's another one and another one. Then once it establishes the pattern, the computer privately and the corporations privately can ascertain that yes, this picture is this person and this is what their voice sounds like when they speak. Great. Now that we got the voice captured, we can turn around now and we can replicate that because they gave us their voice freely. Of course, they're not mentioning that in the computer contract when you download apps onto your cell phone. So doing the form, the SF-181 form, and checking it off, that's just one aspect. That is the foundation. However, you have to be generating the energy field associated with that contract, which is associated with your voice, associated with your face. And that is one of the areas that I tell people, like, you're not going to just sign off a piece of paper, say you're white, and that's it. It's going to be paradise. I said, that's delusional to think that. You have to have a connection with other people that look like you who are also saying that they are white. Because if you don't have that, you run into a problem. Yeah, you have your Black's Law Dictionary.
Single ant.
Pardon?
I call it the single ant.
Yeah, the single ant. Yes, the single ant cannot build a ant hill. So, well, they can, but it's going to take them a long time. And if they
Long
run into a
time.
problem, if a predator comes across, they're done. So,
Yes. I
as I was saying,
completely understand the
so
community.
so the point of the matter is that when people do this, and they will run into problems, and I've forewarned people, you're going to get challenged on claiming white. So people who come on my webinar know that yes, they're going to test you. You're going to have
Hmm.
more problems from black people than you will from Amorites or Caucasian. They're not going to give you a problem. They'll look at you, nod, wink at you, but the black people are the ones that's going to be all up in arms like five monkeys. And so
Yeah.
this is where the definition for American Indian and Alaska Native comes in because you have to maintain tribal affiliation and community attachment. So this is why I stress for people to be on my YouTube channel, my BitChute channel, watch the videos, question me on it, because there's no black person who's coming on this webinar is going to say, yeah, I get it, I study, I know all that. I'm like, no, you don't, because you got to claim that word which they have deliberately had you polarized against, and the word is white. You have to claim that as part of your DNA, heritage, etc., because white is defined as a person having origins in any of the original peoples of Europe, the Middle East, or North Africa. So we can change the entire planet.
Yep.
We can change this whole economic system by claiming the word white. Do not
Yep.
do not expect the entertainers, the black artists, the black church, do not expect them to embrace this, because they will suffer persecution and a financial loss, because they're that close, they're in that close proximity to what they call the devil, and they are on contract. So for them to do
Yeah.
this, it would be a breach, and they'd have to be very would it have a spine of steel to say, no, I'm gonna, this is the proper way, I got to tell my people this. Ain't nobody leading the people to the promised land. The promised land is right here. They're not going to get the promised land because it's going to put them in a position where they have to give up certain things of the world in order to get the right of being white. It's your right to be white. You have the right to self-identify. So
Yep.
because of the computer, we've had to add the screening process first, because again, we don't know what technology that they're using. And if they try to use your picture and say, oh, we got this picture from her back in 2002, she said she was African American. Yeah, so, and if you want to go back there, black has no standing at law. So at what point were you all going to tell me that being a black woman means I have no standing at law? When were you going to disclose that? Had no intention of disclosing it, because the Constitution is for white people. It says it there. Blacks are considered outside of the system. They're not part of the body politic. So it doesn't matter if it's a black Republican, if they're a black conservative. All of that is an adjective, because black is an adjective. And black is also a patented meat and processed food. Let me correct that.
Yeah.
African American is
Yes,
a
I did see that.
patented, okay, you saw that, patented
Yeah.
meat and processed food. So
Yeah.
when you hear stars, entertainers, athletes saying, I'm an African American, I'm a proud African American, I said, what they're really saying is they're food for these shape shifting
We're
Draco
stuck.
reptilians,
At
and
the
they're
end of the day,
saying it,
we're
and
all stuck.
they're acting as a Draco food, and they're saying, eat me. So when you
Yes.
see the word African American, they're telling their oppressor, because that's a very vague and general term, to come and
Hmm.
eat them. When they say I am white, they're raising their auric field, and they're becoming indigestible. Because the risk is, if they come after you or give you a hassle for calling yourself, I'm a white woman, they are in danger of you alerting other black females and say, listen, black, forget that black girl magic. This is white female power. WFP. I just said it right now. I've never said that before. White female power. Forget black girl magic.
That part.
And then what happens is they'll question you, they'll ask questions, you'll explain to them, and then they'll understand why we kept using Tiffany Haddish's video from her comedy special years ago, where she checked off the box of being white. And what I say is, anybody who sees the videos of myself or anyone that I teach and they decide to go do the form, I tell them, I said, don't do it, because they are already siphoning energy off of your aura. That was what's her name? Sabrina Wallace has explained that, because her family was involved in black ops with the US government. She said they've been doing this for the last 40, 50 years, stealing energy from your aura. She said the government knows that your aura is an organ. Let me repeat that, so in case anybody missed it. Your aura is an organ. It is real. However, because it's not visible to us, we attribute it to the realm of the spirit realm type of thing where you can't see it, touch it, what have you. However, that was the reason for the 5G, and that's why they do what's called have biosensors in the body with the 5G, where they can monitor what's going on in your body, what's going on with your heart rate, what's going on with your perspiration, what's going on with your eye dilation, etc. So they want to monitor the human body very much like in the Matrix. So the point to help you, now we got that cleared up, is it has become very more expansive. And if you run into an issue where you need a third party witness to validate the fact that you're white, you won't be able to get it from any of your black associates, because we already know what black people are going to do. They're going to run for the hills. They're not going to defend you. They're not going to help you. They're not going to do anything. They might say that and hang out with you for companionship or for socializing, but then when it comes to that real stuff, when them real shape shifting reptilians start flashing some scales like they did in Florida at the mall there, and people were running around out the mall scrambling, they're going to run for the hills. And so you have to stand on that position of being white. White is yours. The people calling themselves white are the black people. That's who they are. You have to tell them that. I get on the people in the New Age community, the people who channel and do all the transcendental meditation. I'm always getting on those people when they want to talk about other star systems and we got to save the planet. So when are you guys going to start telling black people that they're actually white? Y'all are the lepers. Because if you're not going to do that, they are not fulfilling, they are not living the principle of we are all one. They love saying that we're all one. No, they're talking about the Caucasian, the Neanderthal. They like Neanderthal now. I'm like, that ain't anything to brag about, but they love using the word Neanderthal now. So they know they are Neanderthals that used to live in caves. They are not E1B1A or E1B1B. So since they're not either of those two, they are the youngest of the genes dealing with mutations, whereas we are the oldest. And so I'm taking people through this. We're not rushing people through this. Everyone's skill set and everyone's ability to advance is based on each autochthon participant. Some people do it fast, some people take a little while. I want people to have comprehension, because if you run into a situation where you say you're a white female and they turn around and they say, no, you're not white. How are you white? Now you're like, uh, 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 I can't explain. That hesitation, they're like, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. She just saw something on the internet and she's running with it. And then at that point, if it's still something you have to fight to defend, talking about claiming your whiteness and not being put in the category of black, then it becomes an uphill battle. You need all the assistance you have. I've spoken at the UN Human Rights Council. I don't know if you saw that video where I spoke at the Human Rights Council pertaining to artificial intelligence and its effect on human rights. So if you haven't seen that, it's on my YouTube channel. If you do a search, Chief Nanya L on Human Rights Council, it should come up. And I had a speech. They used my face for the thumbnail for that day back in November 2023.
Oh, okay.
With the Namuzan, nobody, not even the so-called Egyptians in Egypt, when they go to the UN, they don't wear this. They can't wear this because they're not the Egyptian. They are the migrants that came over. And so the danger is once you start claiming that, they're in trouble. Now, the next issue is they're finding out that 60% of African Americans have the DNA of Ramesses III. Let me repeat that again for the benefit of those who just came in. They took DNA samples, if I recall the year correctly, it was back in 2007, and 60% of the African Americans whose DNA that they sampled in the so-called United States of America They found out that their DNA, 60% of them have the DNA of Ramesses the third.
Wow.
That means America was Egypt first before Africa. And let's get something clear. We're not disputing life. We're not saying life didn't start there. What we're saying is it was one landmass. So whatever the climate was at that point in time, they were building here first from Ethiopia, the Bantu, and then migrated with the what are they called? The Olmecs from Uganda, and then ended up here. So they said, how are 60% of African Americans having the DNA of Ramesses III over here? Wasn't through no slave trade, because we know the slave trade is BS. All of those things we have to discredit that. We have to disprove those things, because then it makes you feel, they'll make us feel that you have no connection to the land. You're already home. You just have to go outside, put your feet on the ground, and then call on your ancestors to say, listen, need your strength now. I can be the tool, but you all got to work it from that spiritual realm to open this stuff up for us. And that's why coming on the webinar and being affiliated with me is to only to your advantage, because I'm the one who found the form back in 2007. So you can't be black or African American and then see a form. Oh, okay, I just got to check this box and check that box, and I can do it myself. Nope, because you're not going to know when because they will obstruct and block, and you're not going to know what to say, what to do. And then as you try to navigate that, it's just going to become worse. I'll put it in simpler terms. If you ever see any of those documentary shows of these Amorites leaving from here and going to Africa or going to India to go hunt lions and tigers and stuff, what's the number one thing that they hire when they leave? They get the plan, everything's planned. They got the trip planned, everything. What do? They make sure when they get there, they got a guide. They might be the greatest sharpshooter, you know. What did Eddie Griffin say? Yeah, they could knock a fly off a deer's ear at 300 yards with a bullet easily. But when it comes to hunting and they're going into a different environment, they have to have a guide to know how the patterns of nature. What you're doing by coming on the webinar and something told you to come on, now I can tell you, you're hearing it directly from the source. Being white and living this is a different lifestyle. There is a pattern that's involved in here. And that requires you, in order to resonate with that pattern, the black mentality, the black way of doing things has to be burned. It has to be let go, because it won't take somebody but 2 minutes to hear you speak that if you're claiming white, but you're not conducting yourselves accordingly, they're going to disregard you, not going to take you serious. And then you're going to have a hard time doing that. We have all the documentation to prove how we're white, thanks to the US government, CDC, NIH, OMB, and a crow. We have that. That ain't a problem. The issue is telling people that they have to make large scale changes in their lives for the white energy, the white power to work for them. And we do say white power. Anything else?
Now I was looking to get my passport soon. Now that changes the type of passport that I'm able to get, correct? Once
No,
I change
changes
the
nothing.
status.
Changes nothing. All the
So the
people,
citizenship doesn't change it? Like I'm
first of
still a
all,
citizen?
Dred
I don't want to
Scott,
be a citizen.
Dred Scott, remember, Dred Scott has not been overturned. They overturned, you know what Roe versus Wade was about, right?
Refresh?
Roe versus Wade dealing with abortion.
Yes.
Okay, it just got overturned, what, 2 years ago? That was a Supreme Court decision. So
Okay.
now Dred Scott is 1857. They got two justices on the Supreme Court for the United States of America, but they ain't overturning Dred Scott. You don't find something strange with that? They overturned Roe versus Wade, and someone could correct me if I'm wrong, the Roe versus Wade was dealing with abortion. So now they're going to make it where the women can't get an abortion. Why? Because the numbers, the nativity numbers for Neanderthals is down. So they didn't
Yes.
overturn Roe versus Wade for for the benefit of Amorite women, or they care about killing a life. It's about the numbers. Plus, about 75% of Neanderthal men, their sperm count is down, so they can't reproduce. So they're not going to be able to reproduce in the next 5 to 7 years. So that makes it a problem. So that's the reason why they show, if you see commercials, they'll have a black woman with an Amorite. They're sending them a subliminal signal. You need to go mate with this woman because your sperm count is low. But with her womb, she'll be able to at least incubate that. Whereas if they get with an Amorite woman, all bets are off. Besides, they want black men anyway.
That part.
This is the state of affairs. This has nothing to do with this is about having numbers. And so if they can get mixed, they'll take the mixed because they can get the mix closer to pale versus having your complexion or darker, because they said, well, that'll be closer to darkness, maroon. No, we don't want that. So
So
that's
they're
why.
no longer concerned with the one drop no more.
Well, the
It's
one
bigger than
drop
the
rule,
one drop.
the one drop rule is still, it's still in effect. The point I'm making is as they talk about resetting the financial system and resetting government and the great reset.
Mm-hmm.
There's a document here. I don't know if you've seen it. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. This came out the UK back in 2017. And it is saying that the median wealth of African Americans, or Black Americans as they have here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Says the median wealth will what?
Will fall to zero by 53. Wow.
So, where's the article here? A new report calculates the median wealth for Black Americans will fall to zero by 2053 if current trends continue. Now, the date again, like I said, it was back here September 13, 2017. 8 years ago. This was the article. What's his name? Yang, the Chinese guy, was running for president. He was on the Breakfast Club, and he told, what's his name? He told Charlemagne the God. But what he said is, oh, look it up, check it out. No, we don't say check it out. We say, if I'm going to present something to you and say it's a fact, I need to present to you the facts. Isn't that better than me telling you, oh, go look it up, you'll find it? Which is better?
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah, because it's a lot of false information out here. You might run across the wrong information, and then call that person a liar because they ain't did their due diligence.
exactly. So by 2053, Latino Americans who are also experiencing a sustained downward wealth slide will hit zero about 2 decades later. Now, this is the study by Prosperity Now and the Institute for Policy Studies. None of the Black people, African Americans, Pan Africanists, Umar Johnsons. Here, I'm going to put it in the chat so everybody has it. They're not talking about this. Black people are on a collision course back to slavery. Do you know what it means to say fall to zero? And it ain't gonna be no 2053. We're talking about 2028 by 2030. Because with the computer and them making androids, like what Elon Musk
Yes.
is doing, and the Chinese have androids that can now start to run, I'm figuring 10 years that they'll say, well, we won't hire humans to do this work. We could hire a robot to do this kind of work. And then that's where it starts. And what are the humans going to do that get displaced? They can't do job retraining because people are using chatbot GPT and what's the other one? Alexa and all that AI. So getting retrained is pointless. What are they going to do economically? And I'm leaving that as an open question to be answered to later. So Black Americans will fall to zero by 2053. Barack Obama said the word black has no standing at law. On Facebook. So here it is. So if you've never seen this before, October 16th, 2012, he said it, not me. So Tom Joyner interviews President Barack Obama on his Tom Joyner Morning Show and greets him by saying it's our first black president of the United States. No, that was John Hanson. But in any event, President Obama replies, Tom, I don't look at myself as the first black president because the word black has no standing at law. That's why, what's his name? Byron Allen lost that case, that lawsuit against Comcast. They used the 1865 Civil Rights Act, which is for black people. They used it against him, and that's how they won. That's how they got the $10 billion judgment against him.
Then they tried to cover it up and say it was a lie.
Pardon?
I see on the next paragraph, they tried to cover it up and say it was a lie.
That's to get people distracted to say, oh, that's funny, ha ha ha. No, Barack is a constitutionally trained attorney, and so is Big Mike.
I understand the distractions.
So that was to throw people up. That, see, if you say something serious, but then say, ha ha, I was joking, then what will people do? They'll disregard the first statement and say, oh, yeah, he was joking. Oh, you can't take him serious. He said it was a joke. Just because someone says it's a joke doesn't mean it is a joke.
That part.
So now that you see that, anything happening for black people in the United States of America, they're not going to get no remedy because it's already known amongst the legal eagles. That's your Benjamin Crumps. That's your Judge Mathis, right? Even Judge Joe Brown. All of them know the word black ain't got no standing at law. So the only thing they could do is civil rights, but that's out the window now because Trump wrote an executive order and removed civil rights. He took the United States off the Human Rights Council. So any black person talking about filing human rights complaints in the United States is pointless because the U.S. has taken themselves off the HRC, which is the Human Rights Council. That's where the UN under the Human Rights Council could summon them to come before the UN either in New York or in Switzerland and explain things. Now they're not doing it. All they have is the UPR report, which I have to do a UPR because we missed entering it, but I said it doesn't matter. We're still a stakeholder. And so this will be our third report on the United States of America. No other black groups, African American, have done it. No indigenous have done it. This will be our third one. So what I'm conveying to you is they have given you all a remedy of claiming white. That's the one word they did not expect you people of African descent to embrace and claim as yours. Black people will call themselves the devil. They will say they are savage. They will say they are a beast. But say I am white, man, you talking crazy. But calling yourself the devil is not okay.
That part.
So this is very detailed in terms of I'm showing people how to change this. I'm guiding you through this forest with predators or in this tank with killer whale, sharks, stingrays, and guiding you how to avoid getting stung. Certification of the birth certificate is nonsense. It is complete foolish. Jonah Bay and Yusuf El, I asked those guys and they got mad. I did Yusuf El show when he challenged how anyone is if the SF-181 is valid. I challenge anybody. I went there, I challenged him, made him look like a fool, and then that was it. And then about a year later, he's screaming at his audience members, telling them, I told you, fill out that SF-181 form. I said, I thought he said that a year ago it was foolish. It didn't make sense. Now he's he's getting mad at his viewers for not doing it. Difference between this webinar and everybody else, including the hustlers, I give out certificates of achievement, which are recognized by Facebook as a legal document to change your slave name on Facebook into your indigenous appellation. No one else out there has that type of influence.
Interesting.
So that's a certificate of achievement. We've known people who've used it in court cases and things of that nature, and it has been accepted. So I've already established the pattern. I'm the guide on this. And then when you get to a certain point, I said, okay, yep, now you can handle your affairs. But if you get ganged up on or whatever, just give me a call or a text. And then you mentioned my appellation. They don't want to hear Chief Nami Shabu L. They hear that. Nope, 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 stop, stop, stop.
And see,
Don't say it.
that's the main reason why I haven't really gone forward with much of anything, because I don't have the confidence with the knowledge that I have myself to go forward, and I don't want to be the single ant trying to do this by myself and not have any support team behind me that understands this process. I'm the only one in my family that's even considering this, that even has even the smidge bit of knowledge about this. So it's like I definitely didn't want to go in by myself. So
You,
I know I needed a community to
you,
to come into to do this with.
you're not. Let me put it this way: you're not alone, but you are by yourself. You know Bobby Hemmett?
Yes.
I've spoken with Bobby Hemmett on the phone, and Bobby Hemmett has sent me. If you see some of my old pictures, you'll see Sachmet and Anpu. I got those pictures directly from Bobby Hemmett. I have those. Bobby Hemmett has a video out. They took it off of the YouTube because I used it. I loved that video. And if I would have had my real player, I would have recorded it. On there, he said, when it comes to consciousness, this is his position. His position, and I honor it. Don't teach black folks. If they're conscious, great. If they're not, don't teach them niggers nothing.
Yeah, they don't want to learn. You waste your breath.
I take the position of give them 5 minutes.
And
And
see the
talk to
five
them. And then if
minutes,
you see
they
it's
go,
not you,
within that 5 minutes, they go, that sounds interesting. Oh, back to the stuff that I'm used to. And then it's all of it was for, in vain until they come into it on their own terms and their time when they're ready for it, if that
I'm
ever comes.
I'm of the position of because we don't know, we're now learning how time, as they call it, because there's no such thing as time,
No
how
such
it
thing.
works.
Hmm.
I'm very much into no, present it. If they accept it, great. If they reject it, great, move on. They can
Hmm.
never say, if they believe there's a creator or a judgment day or whatever, they can never say they were not told. Can't.
Yes.
You at that point, if all you got was 2 minutes and you see sparks are going off between their temples and they can't take it, you did your
Hmm.
that was it.
Yep.
It was meant for you.
Planting the seed.
That's it. And if it germinates, great. If it doesn't, great. But
Yep.
you can never hang your head and feel like you failed. No, it wasn't anything like that. That person was not ready. And it wasn't your time. You told them and you move on. Seek the living amongst the dead.
That part.
Ocean of dead out here. So seek
Yeah.
living. And so this is where I tell people, yeah, you'll have to stay away from family members. You're going to have to not speak with them unless it's
Yep.
a social or a business arrangement that you're dependent upon them or interdependent upon them. Then cool. Outside of that,
Nope.
you can't rely on them to help you. And don't feel sad about it because this was another of Bobby Hemmett's videos where he talked about you're down here to find your spiritual family. Your
Yes.
physical family up until 18, that's in the rearing stages. After they turn 18, they're strangers. So,
Yep.
so when people want to vouch for a family member that they ain't lived together for 10 years or 15 years and they're in another state, you don't know what they did because you're not around them like when y'all were children. You
That part.
know, or
They're a completely different person now.
you
Yes.
can't do that now. That's they're complete strangers. So don't feel bad about it. Welcome to the club. This is where you're going to find like-minded white people. You're not going to find it anywhere else.
That's what's up.
So if you could you could send me a private chat. Oh no, we have your email already. So you have to do you haven't done the video, so you need to do the video for for the screening. And once you do that and send that to me, it shouldn't take you more than a minute. Once you've done that, then we move on. Then you go on to coming on the webinar. The donation is $50 every month until you're done the webinar. I used to do it for free. Now it's $50 donation, and that's nothing in comparison to what I've been seeing going on out there. All right.
Okay.
Anything else?
Okay. No, not at this time.
All
I
right. So
definitely enjoyed the conversations.
great. So we'll make sure that we send you the video requisite. There is a
Mhm.
video about COVID, and you have to watch that video. It's 45 minutes about what they did with the PCR test. Everybody was focused on the vaccine and didn't look at the PCR test. And there's a woman, she's got a PhD in immunology and virology, and she explains what, and she goes into detail about the PCR test being with the nanoparticles. The purpose was to set up an antenna on the pineal gland, and then they can remote control people through the 5G. All right.
Okay.
Glad
All
that
right.
you're here. Much appreciated.